Good evening and welcome back to another Fantasy Football Fix daily price change predictions video. My name is FPL Nacho and this is a series where we discuss potential FPL price changes to help you build that essential team value. Now, the international break is finally over and we can turn our heads to FPL once again with that game week 12 deadline looming ever closer. Remember, Saturday morning, so don't miss out on that one. And we have plenty to talk about in this video with a lot of potential price changes happening tonight. In particular, a few that we're going to be discussing in more detail in this video. In particular, a Spurs asset who is likely to rise in price and a West Ham attacker that is really doing well in the underlying stats and someone we want to do a bit more of a deep delve into. So, as always, guys, all the information is taken from fantasyfootballfix.com, the leading FPL platform. So if you want to improve those ranks or win those mini leagues, be sure to head over to fantasyfootballfix.com, link in the bio. And if you want to support the channel, hit that like, smash the subscribe button. And with this busy winter period, you don't want to miss a thing, so hit that notification bell. So guys, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, we're going to kick off this video in usual fashion, taking a look at the Fantasy Football Fix price change predictor to have a look at those that might be changing in price tonight, and in particular, those that are rising, as of course, those are the hot topics in the fantasy world. So, first up guys, Reece James is looking like he might get his rise to 6 million. Now, he has been rising continually since that, I believe that brace against Newcastle, ever since that, his price has been flying and clearly managers are seeing real value in him. And he could go from a 5.5 million starting defender to 6 million going into game week 12. As you can see, the progress bar nearly at 106%. We have him potentially to rise in price tonight. So if he is on your radar and someone you're targeting for game week 12, it might be worth making that transfer tonight and not missing out on that potential price rise. Now, another player that is potentially rising is West Ham's Bowen. Now, all the attention has been around Antonio and early in the season, Ben Rama, but Bowen has been the one that has really flown under the radar and been ticking over nicely as an FPL asset. And at 2.4% ownership, somebody who managers could really see as a potential differential going forward into the coming game weeks. Looking like he might rise to 6.4 million, as you can see, the progress bar at 103.8%. That shows that he is definitely on the cusp of rising in price tonight, and we think that this is a player we need to delve a bit more into detail, so we're going to be looking at him later on in the video. Now, somebody that has been kind of in pretty much every video is Livramento at Southampton. The 4 million gem is looking like he might rise to 4.6 million tonight. Ownership has surpassed 20%, no surprises there with the value that he's offering as an FPL asset. And as you can see, they're rising at 1% progress per hour. We have him predicted to rise in price tonight. And again, if you've missed the boat on Livramento, I still think there is value there, particularly at 4.5 million for sure. A few other notable ones, Ramsdale potentially rising in price tonight, of course, after some recent heroics in that Arsenal goal. And Son at Spurs, the Spurs asset that is potentially rising in price tonight. Certainly a player that is on everyone's radar. We are going to touch on him a little bit more in the rest of this video with a bit of a comparison against Harry Kane, so I know that's what you guys want. And looking at those potential price fallers, Chalobah at Chelsea at 4.5% ownership, not really affecting too many managers there, but clearly at 4.9 million, with the likes of Livramento at 0.4 cheaper, might be worth making that sideways move if you want to save a bit of cash in your squad. Calvert-Lewin potentially falling in price tonight, hasn't exceeded that progress bar of 100%, and at 8 million, that is definitely somebody that managers are going to have on their watch list in the future game weeks. But unfortunately, right now, this injury, we just can't consider him, obviously. And Lukaku and Aubameyang, the two premium forwards that are likely to fall in price tonight. Now, again, wildcard transfers do not contribute towards FPL price changes. So, those managers that are acting at a wildcard might be sat there over Lukaku. That might be skewing his potential price rise and fall. So, it's just worth noting that. But Lukaku, back in training, someone to be on the watch list right now, but probably still a sell if you own him, just because of the likes of Harry Kane coming into a great run of fixtures. And Aubameyang at 5.4% ownership, a great differential, but again, with the likes of Harry Kane with such brilliant fixtures, it's very difficult to ignore him right now. So guys, as I mentioned, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into some of these players and let you guys know whether you should be targeting them for game week 12. Right guys, first up we're going to be looking at Jarrod Bowen, who's predicted to rise in price tonight. And what I've done is gone over to fantasyfootballfix.com and brought up the fixed comparison matrix for me to compare him against similar price players and those players that are really talked about in the FPL community, so have a bit more of an ownership in comparison to Bowen's 2.4% ownership around that region. And what I've done here is compared him to his teammate Ben Rama, Gallagher at Crystal Palace, who of course is getting a lot of talk and commotion right now off the back of his recent performances, Smith Rowe at Arsenal, no surprises there with his goal scoring form, and Rafinha, who's probably considered the best value midfielder in the game when he is actually fit and healthy, of course, and Leeds are firing on all cylinders. And what I've done is I've brought up some popular stats just to compare him alongside these assets, as of course, with his ownership right now, he could prove to be a brilliant asset going forward as a bit of a differential. And first and foremost, I just want to draw your eyes to the projected points over the next 5 league matches. So below the name there, you can see Jarrod Bowen is predicted to score 18.4 points in the next 5 league matches. Now, when we compare that to Ben Rama, we can see is at 16.9. And while he is 0.1 million more, we can see Bowen is a little bit more predicted to score points than him. So he is the go-to guy in terms of the West Ham assets if you are targeting a West Ham midfielder. And when we look at the comparison to the other players, we see Gallagher only has 16.1 points, Smith Rowe at 18.3. So worth mentioning, Bowen is predicted to score slightly more points, but it's very close there. And Rafinha leading the way on 19.2 points there. No surprises, obviously, with Rafinha being such an explosive asset in this Leeds team and the talisman in that side. But really good to see there that Bowen is toe-to-toe with some of these players that are considerably higher ownership and showing that he could be a brilliant differential. Now, the minutes there you can see, they've all played kind of similar minutes, so I think it is a good and big enough data size for us to analyse these players. Now, when we come down here into some of the stats, we can see FPL points-wise, Gallagher is leading the way on 62. But again, there isn't a huge gap between them. Bowen on 55 in comparison to Gallagher's 62. As we can see there, the big difference here is the bonus points that Gallagher is racking up. Bowen on only 3. We know, obviously, from West Ham assets that the likes of Antonio is a bonus points magnet. And of course here, right now, Bowen isn't really doing that in that area. Gallagher, on the other hand, picking up some winners and obviously being all-action midfielder, picking up some really good bonus points along the way. And of course, you can see there Smith Rowe on 6 and Ben Rama on 8. I think he picks up a lot of those early on in the season, not necessarily recently. And Rafinha, again, being the match winner in so many games, naturally picking up plenty of bonus points there. And when we look at the goals, again, Rafinha, Smith Rowe, the Gallaghers, those all-action midfielders are the guys that are really picking up a majority of the points there. But when we come down to the FPL assists, this is really where Bowen is coming into his own here. 6 assists. Next best is Gallagher with 4, and then we have Ben Rama with 3. And it's worth noting as well, with Bowen being significantly on set pieces, probably only argue that Gallagher of the rest are probably matching him in terms of set piece duties. It's a real great string on his bow to have going into the coming game weeks, because even though West Ham's fixtures are a little bit tricky, having those corners of West Ham's aerial threat always makes him a good asset going forward in terms of FPL. And some other stats I wanted to quickly look at. Shots, Smith Rowe being quite surprising, only 16 shots, so showing that he's been very, very efficient with his shots. But Bowen with a very considerable 27, but Rafinha leading the way with 35 there. But again, Bowen going toe-to-toe with these assets here, a considerably higher ownership. And last I just wanted to look at shots on target. Bowen leading the way there on 12, and attempted assist 19 in comparison to Rafinha's 22. So looking at the overall stats here, I think it's clear that Gallagher is probably the all-action midfielder, as we can see with the 4 FPL assists and 4 goals. But I really think that Bowen at 2.4%, and we've seen with the projected points over the coming 5 game weeks, I think if managers are looking for a differential, a little bit different to their mini-league rivals, he could be the go-to asset. And if you're looking in particular at West Ham midfielder, then he is the go-to man going forward. Okay guys, next up we're going to be looking at the projected points for players over the next 4 game weeks. And the reason why I brought this up is mainly to look at those Spurs assets. Now, as I mentioned, Son is predicted to rise in price tonight, and really a lot of managers are deliberating right now whether to target Kane or Son. Now, a lot of managers are going for the double up. Great if you can do that in your team structure, but I think the majority of managers are looking at targeting one Spurs asset and really don't know which way to go. So what I've done here is brought up the projected points over the next 4, just to give you an idea on how close it is between the two and whether it might sway your decision making going forward. And I think it's interesting to bring this up as well, just because of some of the players that you might consider selling to fund your way to these assets. The likes of Jamie Vardy, as you can see on screen here, is likely to be the cash cow going forward to afford Harry Kane. And as you can see that on the projected points, currently sat at 20.1 over the next 4, isn't necessarily the sort of figures that you want to see when you're selling a player like that, because they are still very good potential returns going forward. So it's just worth noting that for those Vardy sellers that are potentially looking at selling. Clearly game week 12, a tricky fixture at home to Chelsea, but then we know that game week 13 fixture is so brilliant, and he's the 3rd highest scoring projected player in game week 13 at 6.6. So it's just worth noting that, and not having a short-sighted mindset just on game week 12 and looking a little bit beyond. So just a quick note on Jamie Vardy there. But I want to turn the attention to Son versus Kane here. Now, the reason I brought the projected points up, I don't want to look too much at the underlying stats between the two. And the main reason being is because new manager, new system. I think when we look at the underlying stats, in particular to Harry Kane, because we know his underlying stats have been so poor under Nuno, I think when we get a new formation change, a new manager, new motivation for the likes of Harry Kane, underlying stats over the opening 11 game weeks do provide us some data, but I don't think it's necessarily as handy as it would be for the likes of Chelsea assets, Man City assets, where we have clearly what the formation would be and how the players operate in that formation. In a way, I think managers should approach this almost as a clean slate going forward. And with the likes of Harry Kane and Son, we know that these are proven assets in the game. So I think first and foremost, it's worth noting that when you are looking to bring in one of these assets over the coming game weeks, I don't necessarily think there's a right answer between Harry Kane or Son. I think it's much more between team structure and preference going forward. Now, managers that currently own Jamie Vardy and then maybe have a Salah and then mid-price midfielders might find it easier to go up into Harry Kane rather than stretch their funds to improve maybe a Rafinha into a Son, which might incur negative points hits. So I really do think that it is all team dependent, and neither one is the wrong choice, guys. Looking at these projected points here, we can see Son is projected to score 20.3 points over the next 4 league matches. Harry Kane projected to score 22.2. So as you can see there, there's less than 2 points between the two in our projections. Not enough really to say that there is one clear winner between the two. And you have to remember, Harry Kane does have penalty duty as well. So that is a little bit more of a factor on why we're projecting him to score a little bit more than Son, of course, going forward. Because when we look at the underlying stats, there's only one winner, and that is Son. And we have to remember that he does get an additional point for goals and for clean sheets. So something to remember for managers going forward. But as I mentioned, I think with the new manager, the new formation, the approach going forward for Tottenham, I think we have to make this decision based on team preference alone. And that is why I think there is no wrong answer here, guys. I think it is definitely a case of mixing players between the two and going with that preference. So if you're a Vardy owner to Kane, maybe if you had the funds in the midfield to go to Son. I think that is the best approach to have, guys, rather than racking your brains for the next 2 days ahead of this Saturday deadline. And it's worth mentioning as well, guys, just looking at this projected points, there's only one winner here, guys, and that is Mo Salah. 29.4 projected points over the next 4 fixtures. Really, guys, if you want to go against him as a captaincy, and I know a lot of managers are considering Spurs assets, you just have to consider those underlying stats and the projected points here. We have him to score basically 7 points per game over the next 4. Ridiculous underlying stats and projections for him. So you have to be a very brave manager to go against him. And that's why, even if you don't own Mo Salah right now, it's still a brilliant time to bring him in and a brave manager to go against him as captain. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap up today's Fantasy Football Fix price change predictions video. Really hope that's provided some food for thought going into game week 12. We've had plenty of time to rack our brains over transfer decisions. So hopefully the Fantasy Football Fix tools have just helped you a little bit justify those decisions going forward. And as always, guys, if you do want to get more information on Fantasy Football Fix and the tools, be sure to head over to fantasyfootballfix.com or download the free app, which provides you with push notifications so you don't miss a single thing. Links in the bio. And it's worth mentioning, guys, we're going to be doing a live stream tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. for an hour, to really get you guys engaged, get the questions going so that we can really delve into the website, use the tools available to answer those pressing questions. So be sure to put that one in your diaries, 5:30 Friday night, ahead of course the Saturday morning deadline. And as always, guys, if you want to support the channel, make sure to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and with daily videos returning, you don't want to be missing a thing, so hit that notification bell. So we will see you same time tomorrow for our live stream. Don't miss it, guys. Take care. Cheers.